Good evening and welcome. Here's wishing all our viewers a very happy new year. Hope you had a good break. If you didn't, even if you didn't, I'm sure there's one lined up soon. Let's get started. We're focusing on escalation along the line of control and the international border, especially in the Jammu region, where day after day, the level of intensity of firing seems to be escalating. Let's get started. These are the stories that have made the headlines this evening. Modi government gives its first categorical response to the Pakistani boat incident. Defense Minister calls intruder a suspected terrorist, says smugglers don't commit suicide. MIM Chief Assuddin Owaisi joins the competitive communalism chorus. Now says everyone is a born Muslim. They too should have their own ghar wapsi. The Modi government continues to use the ordinance route to push key policy and reforms. The government now okays promulgating an ordinance to auction iron ore and other minerals. Government names specialists to head the newly formed Niti Aayog. Economist Arvind Panagraya will be its first vice chairman. Another economist, Vivek Debroy, and scientist V.K. Saraswat will be the newly formed policy body's full-time members. Sports Ministry now recommends ace shuttler Saina Nehwal's name for the Padma Bhushan Awards. Decision comes 2 days after Nehwal expressed anger at being left out. Close to 40 Indian posts along the international border have come under intense attack from Pakistan through the day today. Indian posts have been under attack since the 31st of December, and the violations have escalated with every passing day. A couple of hours before now, Pakistani Rangers also opened fire in the Arnia sector. Defense ministers of both countries are accusing each other of warmongering. Sujaul Haq files this report from the international border.
Close to 40 Indian posts under fire from Pakistani Rangers. Heavy shelling in Samba, Harinagar and Katwa. Pakistan continued to provoke along the international border, targeting posts in Manyari, Pansar, Bobia, Karol Kathirian, Karol Krishna, Londi, Benglad and Chelyari. A BSF Jawan was reported dead in Pakistan firing. Devinder Singh was killed in Hiranagar. The current round of firing has been on since 31st December and has only escalated since. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Sources have told Headlines today that ISI and Lashkar are planning an Arnia-style attack ahead of US President Barack Obama's Republic Day visit. BSF has specific intelligence inputs on Pakistan Rangers in Sialkot, giving them cover fire to assist infiltration. Close to 60 to 70 suicide attackers are said to be camping in Sialkot in 6 to 7 launch pads opposite Paharpur, Katwa, Hiranagar and Samba.
उनको एक जगह जो पेन हो गया पेशावर में, which was a bad incident. They are trying to sort of divert attention, in which India is also a part of that.
The report of fresh terror plot comes just after crucial intelligence input about Hafiz Saeed being spotted along the border. The 2611 mastermind has been spotted near the Samba sector on the Pakistani side in an area called Shakargarh. Bureau Report, Headlines today.
Incessant firing along the international border has led to about 3,000 villagers being evacuated. Most of these villages fall in the direct line of fire from the Pakistani side, and that has triggered fear and panic. Sujaul Haq with this report.
"45-year-old Sheila Devi has been living in a temple after her house in Samba's Suchatgarh Kulia came under fire from Pakistan. Her husband, Gararam, is an army soldier deployed at the international border. And Sheila Devi underwent surgery just a few days ago. But instead of recovering at her house, she has been uprooted and forced to live in a temple with a daughter and ailing 80-year-old mother-in-law.
फायरिंग हो रही थी, फायरिंग की वजह से इधर आए हैं। मेरा ऑपरेशन हो गया है। डॉक्टर ने बोला 1 महीना कम से कम 1.5 महीना रेस्ट करे, 1 महीना तो चाहिए ही चाहिए।
Like Sheila Devi, more than 3,000 villagers have been evacuated from their homes following incidents of ceasefire violations. Most of these villages fall in the direct line of fire from the Pakistani side. As fear and panic grips border villages, the administration has issued an advisory asking villagers to vacate their houses.
आज 5-7 दिन से लगातार चल रही है। अभी भी तुम्हारे यहाँ पर देख लिया, आपके सामने चल रही है।
कोई नहीं सोचता, जब वोट लेने होते हैं सभी आते हैं, लेकिन बाद में कोई नहीं पूछता।
आंखों से देखा कि कहाँ गोला कैसे पड़ा और कैसे मतलब इतना दिक्कत है हमारे गांव में कि अभी टाइम ही नहीं दे रहा, दो मतलब इकट्ठे पड़ रहे हैं।
फायरिंग हो रही है, हाँ, पशु भी बहुत जख्मी हो गया उधर, और ऐसे लोग भाग रहे हैं, कोई पैदल भाग रहा, कोई गाड़ी भी भाग रहा, कोई ऐसे।
Most of the villagers have now been advised by the administration and the security forces to evacuate as soon as possible. More than 3,000 villagers so far have evacuated their places in the frontal areas of international border. While all that is going on, this is going to be a tough time for people who are living on the ground zero with their families scattered here and there. They themselves wish that peace returns as soon as possible in these regions. With cameraman Dilip Sahu in Samba sector, Shujaul Haq for Headlines Today.
I want to take you across live and exclusive to the Glar post along the Samba sector, just 100 meters away from the zero line, and reporting from there tonight is my colleague Shujaul Haq. We're seeing an intense war of words from the defense ministers of both countries. You've been spending time with the BSF soldiers along the international boundary. What's your sense of who's to blame and what explains Pakistan's unabated firing at this time? From New Year's onwards, there's been continuous firing. It isn't stopping. What do the BSF officers make of Pakistan's strategy, Suja?
Well, Rahul, there is no explanation whatsoever of who started it and why Pakistan fired at the Indian post. But what I can tell you what I have gathered from being around in these areas, it's a vicious cycle. Pakistanis fire at us, we fire back at them with as much ammunition as we have on this area. They fire at us again, and this cycle continues, and there has been a trend to it. It has happened this time around, it has happened in last year as well. For a lot of time in 2014 we were seeing that this cycle continued for a long time, but this time around what we are witnessing on the ground is the intensity has increased and the targets are different. The targets at this point of time are directly the villagers. We've seen thousands of people coming out scared out of their houses. In fact, when I was reaching this place, I was coming in a steel bunker in a vehicle of the security forces, and throughout the area I saw many villages which have completely turned into ghost towns now. There are people have left everything behind. They have even forgotten to switch off their lights at certain places. That's the level of scare that we are witnessing on the ground. So that is different. That gives you the intensity of what has happened today. As far as the situation is concerned, it's very, very grave. We can hear even now as we're talking to you, there are small arm fires going on not very far from here, and we can actually hear those fires from here.
Okay, so who's to blame? There's a vicious blame game currently on, and are we heading to even greater escalation in the days to come? Shujaul Haq Thakur, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I will be travelling to the international border tomorrow and joining Suja and my colleagues Ashraf and Ashwini and filing reports from there. But I want to focus at this time on the counter statements coming from the defense ministers of India and Pakistan. Let's start with what Khwaja Asif, the defense minister of Pakistan, says. In the past 6-7 months, we have tried to better our ties with India so that peace can prevail. But it seems they do not understand this language. I believe we will now communicate with India in the language they do understand. Then there is Sushma Swaraj putting out a statement. There's also Manohar Parrikar saying Pakistan doesn't stay quiet even on New Year. Our response is don't hesitate, react appropriately without holding yourself back. Very bold, very hard-hitting comments from the defense ministers of both countries. Sushma Swaraj also rejected the statement put out by the Pakistan Foreign Office, where it said that Indian BSF greeted unsuspecting soldiers with a volley of unprovoked fire. Sushma hit back saying, despite Indian messages consistently calling for firing to stop, Pakistan commanders continue to fire on Indian border posts. Not a happy new year along the international border for sure. I want to go across to General G.D. Bakshi because we've got Lieutenant Colonel Shafqat Saeed, leading defense analyst, joining us from Pakistan. General G.D. Bakshi, one of our leading military voices. General Bakshi, the Pakistan defense minister is accusing India of being very aggressive, of warmongering. And as Suja said, it's a vicious circle. How do you establish who started the firing, and how do you also establish who's to blame or who's more to blame in this cycle of fire and counterfire, sir?
Rahul, you know, you must understand Pakistan's motivations. Every time an American president has set foot on Indian soil, Pakistan has tried to stage either a mass casualty terrorist incident, or in addition to that, they have staged incidents on the line of control and the international border. The entire intent is to internationalize the Jammu and Kashmir issue, to drag in, you know, despite the Shimla agreement which stressed bilateralism, to drag in the United Nations, to drag in the United States. This has been their intent. This is the intent we must understand when we ask ourselves, why is Pakistan firing? It simply wants to get the UN observers back in.
Okay, Shafqat Saeed, you must respond to this. This has happened in the past when Bill Clinton came to India. It's happening once more with Barack Obama scheduled to arrive as the chief guest for our Republic Day. Pakistan desperately trying, whether it's along the international boundary, whether it's along the LOC or along the maritime coast, to try and create some sort of an escalation. So there's a spectacular strike. That is what the Pakistani army seems to be working towards. Lieutenant Colonel Shafqat Saeed.
And if I go on to that circle or that trough and of allegation and counter-allegation, I would say that India is trying to malign Pakistan before the American president's visit to the subcontinent, to the India. And for doing that, India has escalated on the border. Well, I said that this would have been a reply to allegation, counter-allegation. I don't want to do that. I would say to put this thing at rest, this escalation, reduce this, de-escalate this. It is not the media trial, or it is not the allegations what would solve it, or not statements and counter-statements of being warmonger, blaming others. That would not solve the issue. The only thing which can solve this issue and increase the trust is engage in dialogue. Don't cancel it, don't postpone it, don't get back from the track of dialogue.
No, we've seen when there's dialogue, not much has changed on the ground. The terror outfits are still supported, financed by the Pakistani intelligence agencies. They still manage to get shelter. They're still deployed all along the LC. Those launching pads still exist. So this is not about dialogue. This is just about what's happening along the IB at this time. I want to ask a question though.
Media trial is not solution.
This is not a media trial, so we are stating facts, and those questions need to be asked.
This is media
in the
trial.
hope
This
that
is
there
a
will be answers. But there is one strong argument that some Pakistani experts I was speaking to, General Bakshi, make, and I want you to respond to it, which is that at this time the Pakistani army has launched a massive operation along the northwest frontier province. That their army is stretched. They've actually withdrawn some troops from the India border, taking them to fight in the northwest frontier province. This is the worst time for Pakistan to seek an escalation with India, because that will mean opening up two volatile fronts at the same time. They argue that this military logic is the most convincing reason why Pakistan is not to blame for the latest escalation. How do you respond to this logic, sir?
This is
Excuse me, I have had to deal with the Pakistani army. Can I?
Yes, General Bakshi, you must. Please go ahead.
You know, I have had to deal with the Pakistani army for 37 years of my service. And let me tell you, there are a lot of hot-head elements, hot-headed battalion and company commanders who want to strut in front of their troops as arch warriors, and they are generally responsible for escalating issues, because at the end of the day, Rahul, they are quite convinced that India will not go beyond a certain point. So it will not involve a situation they feel where they have to pull back their troops from the Afghan border. They are quite hopeful that America would not allow such a denouement. Therefore, they escalate. They escalate to try and tell their Kashmiri separatists that they are active in their support. They escalate to tell their own rank and file that the Pakistan army is alive and kicking. And they escalate to internationalize the Kashmir problem, which has been totally made bilateral after the Shimla agreement.
Lieutenant Colonel Shafqat Saeed, if for a moment we were to believe that dialogue is the answer, then what about all the terror camps that still exist? Hafiz Saeed was spotted, according to Indian intelligence reports, just opposite posts in the Samba sector. Now he's on the ground urging his terrorists to go in. He has a free run in Pakistan. The terror camps still operate. So if the Pakistani government were indeed serious about taking down these terrorists, surely we would have seen action some now which would have created a facilitating ground for dialogue to take place. The dialogue that you so desperately seek now.
Pakistan does not seek this dialogue desperately. Pakistan dialogue is always it is not a monologue, it is dialogue. Pakistan seeks dialogue, not monologue. So you can't say that Pakistan desperately seeks dialogue. But Pakistan aim is peace. Pakistan is not in any, no mathematics can put it that Pakistan, it suits Pakistan to escalate on the international border or on the LOC. Now coming to that the Pakistan army is strong-headed or something like this, a little while before I was talking to that patching crew, I told them I can't put something in my ear because it irritates me. I got my ear slightly damaged because of shelling that I experienced from Indian side once I was posted in Kashmir. I was a battalion commander. So he laughed it out. So he knows, the General Bakshi would know, he would bear me out, that the Indian obstacle on the LOC and on international border is simply impregnable. It cannot be crossed. It cannot be crossed. A human being cannot, a bird can fly, air can pass through, right? But with the number of troops that you are putting on the border and the type of obstacle that you have, don't give Hafiz Saeed such a leverage that he is a Superman something or he is a Mr. Terminator would pass through it like that alien. No, he can't. And it is not possible. And this is just to create a
I think you're misunderstanding the intelligence reports. They never suggested that he'd reach Samba. These reports suggested that opposite posts in Samba, on the Pakistani side of the international boundary, that's where Hafiz Saeed was spotted. That's what the report said. General Bakshi, before I conclude, I want your sense of where do you see hostilities go in the next couple of days? As we build up to the big Barack Obama visit, do you see the level of intensity continuing, or do you actually see that after this intense round of firing that we've seen over the past few days, things will start settling down, sir?
You know, I would very strongly recommend to the powers that be, please go back and study what happened in the year of the Lord 2003. The Pakistanis were misbehaving on the line of control as they are doing now, and then the Indian army had decided to use artillery, in specific heavy caliber medium artillery including 155s and multi-barrel rocket launchers. These caused pain to the Pakistan army. They raised costs for the Pakistan army, and the Pakistan army was forced to accept a ceasefire. This ceasefire lasted 10 years. Now the problem that I see is, when you open small arms fire, you open battalion mortars, I'm afraid it doesn't cause any problem. You know, the problems, as the colonel was saying, he lost an eardrum when the artillery came in. Because when you are in built-up areas, small arm fire does nothing. It is just, you know, satisfaction of the sound. The mortars do kill civilians. The mortars do kill civilians. They don't really kill troops in their built-up defenses. So if you are really serious and you want to stop this, you will have to convey a message to Pakistan. Look, you are now crossing a threshold of tolerance. and we are prepared to escalate till wherever you want to go. You may not like it. You may not like it. And
you're
it may not
actually
be
asking
healthy
for an increase in the level of escalation, increase in hostilities. You're saying from mortar fire, take it up
That
one
will at
notch,
least
take
put
it
an
to
end to
field
it.
artillery. That's the way that Pakistan will learn the lesson, because Manohar Parrikar said Pakistan has so far not learned any lessons. Will tactics change? This story is unraveling very fast. We've got massive deployment on the ground all across the IB and the LOC, and our correspondents will be tracking the story very, very closely. For the time being, Lieutenant Colonel Shafqat Saeed, Major General G.D. Bakshi, thank you very much. We're breaking away because my colleague Jugal Purohit is now joining us, and he's actually come back from a Dornier air sortie where he travelled over the waters where that suspicious boat was brought down. But before I go across to Jugal, the story first. Was the suspicious Pakistani boat that was hunted to a fiery end off the coast of Gujarat over New Year's night on a terror mission? Or was it a group of smugglers not quite on a 26/11 style operation? Did the Coast Guard use disproportionate force? As the controversy rages, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar today made the government's clearest statement so far, pronouncing that smugglers wouldn't have set their vessel ablaze and that they were highly likely to have been on a terror mission.
5 days after the fiery sinking of a Pakistani boat off the Gujarat coast, the government has made its clearest pronouncement on the incident.
The most important factor, if you ask me why I will classify them under suspected or probable terrorist, is because they committed suicide.
The events of New Year's night, when a Coast Guard vessel engaged with a suspicious Pakistani boat 365 kilometers off the coast of Porbandar, ending in a blazing fire and sinking, have churned up a major controversy over what happened. What the Defence Minister has done is dismiss swirling suggestions that the vessel was on a smuggling operation and not involved in a 26/11 style mission. While the Pakistan government maintains an unusual silence, in India, the ministry has also presented a handle for the opposition to attack the government.
Arrogance of the BJP, that if somebody raises legitimate questions, they are dubbed as Pakistanis. Does the BJP have the exclusive proprietorship of nationalism in this country?
कांग्रेस के उन नेताओं को इस बात को समझना होगा कि सुरक्षा से जुड़ा हुआ सवाल किसी पार्टी का नहीं होता, बल्कि वो पूरे देश का होता है।
बात तो बड़ी विचित्र है। हमको शिकायत हो, हमें तकलीफ हो और हम उफ भी ना कर सकें। हम उफ भी करते हैं तो हो जाते हैं बदनाम, और वो कत्ल भी करते हैं तो कोई चर्चा नहीं होती।
While investigations continue in Porbandar with the Coast Guard, a high-level meeting took place in Delhi today, where video footage of the incident was reviewed by intelligence agencies. India's external intelligence agency, RAW, is now leading the probe into who was on that boat and what their intentions really were. With Jugal Purohit in Porbandar, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Let's now go across to Jugal Purohit. He's joining us from Porbandar. He's just come back from an aerial sortie of the area where that boat was brought down. Jugal, your footage will come to us through the night tonight. We'll be putting it out later in the morning tomorrow. But tell our viewers, what did you see? What did you pick up on the ground when you were traveling with the Coast Guard, understanding what really transpired on New Year's night?
Well, Rahul, you see, the situation that we've seen is extremely dramatic. This is an area which, according to not just the Coast Guard but also the fishermen population out here, is not a place where any fishing boat, especially of the size and type that this particular boat resembles on the images that we've seen, actually ventures into. It's just too far away from the fishing zones, the traffic routes. So in a sense, most people are saying that it's located location itself was suspect. Apart from that, its activities that we've seen over the few days of remaining static at a location, continuously chattering with the government agencies in Pakistan. So all of it is quite clearly establishing a pattern. And if you see, the Defence Minister today has actually just vindicated the Indian Coast Guard at a time when there is tremendous doubt about this operation. He said that they did the right thing at the right time. But Rahul, what is extremely important right now is that, unfortunately, despite the efforts being put in, there is no evidence whatsoever except the one that the intelligence agencies have gathered. The Coast Guard has been unable to find any debris whatsoever, any dead bodies whatsoever, which actually takes you to the point that what do you actually present as evidence if one is to do what we did in 26/11 when you sent dossiers across to Pakistan? What do you have right now? The answer is zilch. So the only reliance now is on the intercepts that the intelligence agencies have. And as we just mentioned, today there was a meeting where the entire video footage has been handed over to the Defence Ministry and from them to the intelligence agencies. The Defence Minister has promised, in fact, that in the next 4 to 5 days a full disclosure will be made. This is an extremely unprecedented stand that he's taken. A full disclosure will be made of just what transpired and what led to our action. So interesting times ahead, Rahul. That's all.
Well, the Defence Minister clearly believes India has the evidence, which he says we will be putting out over the next few days. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have made that kind of a comment. But the question is, what is the quality of the evidence, and will it put to rest all the questions raised by the naysayers about whether this is indeed a terror boat? The reality is, they were asked to stop, whistles were blown, there were warning shots that were fired. This suspect boat did not listen, forcing the Coast Guard to first chase them and then fire at them. Jugal Purohit's reportage can be seen on Headlines Today all through the day tomorrow.